At my sister-in-law's wedding. My mom laughed into the mic. She's not married, but she's good for a check. Everyone laughed. My name wasn't even in the program, so I took the mic and cancelled everything. In front of them, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply walked to the DJ booth, cut the music, and announced that the open bar, the venue, rental and the honeymoon suite were no longer funded. The silence that followed was expensive. The microphone feedback wed, a sharp electronic shriek that cut through the stunned silence of the Harbour Point Yacht Club. My mother, Angela, stood frozen with her champagne flute halfway to her mouth, her face a mask of perfectly preserved horror. My brother Tyler looked like he'd been slapped. Savannah, the bride, was just blinking, her false lashes fluttering like a glitching screen. I didn't wait for them to recover. I didn't wait for the murmurs to turn into shouts. I placed the microphone gently on the DJ's table and stepped off the riser. This wasn't an emotional outburst. Emotions are messy. Emotions leave a paper trail of regret. This was a liquidation event. I walked to the corner of the ballroom where the expensive Newport brine smell of the harbour mixed with the scent of lees and old money. I pulled my tablet from my bag. It was already open to the dashboard I had built 3 nights ago. I called it the solvency protocol. On the screen, a list of pending transactions glowed in green. The final venue payment, the catering overages, the open bar tab, the vintage Rolls-Royce waiting outside. The total exposure was $144,000. I looked at my mother across the room. She was whispering furiously to my father, pointing at me. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. She still thought this was a tantrum. She thought I was just acting out, that I would calm down and hand over the credit card like I always did. She thought I was a renewable resource. I tapped the screen. Select all, cancel, confirm. The status bars turned from green to red. Payment declined, authorization revoked, account frozen. I watched the digital numbers vanish, reclaiming my liquidity with a single tap. It felt physical, like a weight snapping off my chest. Across the room, the head bartender frowned. He ran a card through the machine. He paused, frowned deeper, and ran it again. Then he looked up, caught the eye of the banquet manager, and made a cutting motion across his throat. The flow of doming none stopped instantly. That was the moment the reality hit me. Cold and absolute. For 29 years I hadn't been a daughter, I hadn't been a sister, I had been infrastructure. You don't thank the floorboards for holding you up. You don't celebrate the support beams for keeping the roof from crushing you. You walk on them, you ignore them, you only notice them when they snap. My family had spent decades walking on me, assuming I was structural, permanent and silent. They assumed I would carry the load because that's what beams do. They forgot that infrastructure requires maintenance. They forgot that if you rot the foundation long enough, eventually the whole house comes down. Well, I was done being the floor. I was deciding to let gravity take over. The banquet manager was walking toward my father now, a ledger in his hand and a very serious expression on his face. The string quartet stopped playing mid-measure. The lights in the tent flickered, not a malfunction, but a warning. The generator rental was on the list of cancelled items too. I slipped my tablet back into my bag. I didn't run. I walked toward the exit with the steady, measured pace of an auditor who has just closed a file on a bankrupt subsidiary. The air outside was cool, salty, and for the first time in my life it didn't smell like obligation. It smelled like zero balance. I pushed through the heavy service doors and stepped out onto the loading dock. The air here was different. Less perfume, more diesel fumes, and low tide. It was the only honest place in the entire venue. Inside, the chaos I had orchestrated was just beginning to bloom, a beautiful panic-stricken flower. Outside, it was just concrete and seagulls fighting over a discarded crab cake. I leaned against the railing and pulled the lanyard from my purse. I hadn't worn it inside. I'd hidden it the second the security guard handed it to me at the perimeter checkpoint, but I needed to look at it one last time. It was a simple laminated rectangle. Sydney staff, logistics. Access, vendor loading only. My mother, Angela, hadn't just forgotten to send me an invite. She hadn't just seated me near the kitchen. She had classified me as labor by listing me as staff. She had saved herself $350 on a guest plate. $350, I laughed. A dry, sharp sound that startled a gull on the dumpster. That was the valuation of my dignity. $350. I unlocked my phone and opened the spreadsheet that had become my Bible over the last 72 hours. Historical family capital expenditure. The total at the bottom of the column was $115,200. That was what I had poured into the black hole of this family over the last 6 years. It wasn't just birthday checks or holiday gifts. It was structural support. There was the $20,000 for Tyler's entrepreneurial phase, a failed drop-shipping business that consisted mostly of buying inventory he never shipped. There was the $15,000 for Dad's investment opportunity that turned out to be a multi-level marketing scheme for vitamin supplements, and the endless smaller bleed for Angela emergency dental work that looked suspiciously like veneers, mental health retreats that were just spa weekends in Sedona. I had paid it all. Every invoice, every urgent Venmo request at 2 a.m. For years I told myself I did it because I was the strong one. I told myself I was the responsible sister, the successful daughter, the fixer. But looking at that laminate badge, I realized that was a lie I told myself to survive. It wasn't strength. It was the gambler's fallacy. It's a cognitive bias found in casinos and toxic relationships. You sit at the slot machine feeding it coin after coin. You lose but you don't leave. You tell yourself that because you've already put so much money in, the machine owes you. The jackpot is due. If you walk away now, you lose everything you've invested. But if you put in just one more coin, one more bailout, one more wedding deposit, the lights will flash, the bells will ring, and you will finally win the prize. You will finally be loved. I had spent my entire adult life standing in front of a slot machine marked family, feeding it every dollar I earned, waiting for the 3 hearts to line up. But tonight, standing on a grease-stained loading dock in Newport, I finally understood the mechanics of the game. The machine wasn't due to hit. The machine wasn't broken. It was working exactly as it was designed. It was designed to take coins. It didn't have a jackpot. It was never going to pay out. The only way to win was to stop playing. I walked to the edge of the dock. The dark water of the harbour lapped against the pilings, black and oily. I held the lanyard over the water. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel the heavy, wet grief I expected to feel when cutting ties with my own blood. I felt lighter. I let go. The plastic badge fluttered down, hit the water with a silent blip, and vanished into the dark. I turned back toward the service doors. My phone was buzzing in my pocket. Angela, Tyler, Savannah, but I didn't check it. I had an appointment to keep. The Solvany protocol wasn't just about stopping the money. It was about closing the account for good. The service doors swung open, but not because I pushed them. Angela burst through, her heels clicking frantically on the concrete. Behind her, Savannah was already filming. Her phone held up like a weapon, the ring light reflecting in her teary eyes. Tyler brought up the rear, looking ready to punch something. "You jealous, bitter little," Angela screamed. It wasn't the polished society matron voice she used in public. This was the voice she saved for closed doors. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The caterer is packing up, the band is unplugging. You are humiliating us." "I'm not humiliating you," I said, my voice calm, almost bored. "I'm just declining the transaction." "Transaction?" Savannah shrieked, stepping closer, phone still recording. "This is my wedding. You can't just decline my wedding because you're sad and lonely and nobody wants you." "Actually," I said, looking directly into her camera lens, "I can because I'm the one paying for it." Or rather, I was. Tyler stepped forward, getting into my space. He was a head taller than me, broad-shouldered from gym sessions I had probably paid for. "Fix this, Sydney, right now. Go back in there, apologize and give them the card. Or I swear to God or what." "Tyler," I didn't flinch. "You'll hit me. You'll badmouth me to your 300 Instagram followers. You going to call the police and report a robbery because your sister stopped giving you allowance. We're family," Angela wailed, switching tactics instantly. "You love my utility," I corrected. "You love that I fix your mistakes. You love that I cover your debts. You love that I make you look successful, but you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have seated me at the vendor table." "That was a mistake," Angela cried. "A logistical error." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. I swiped to the photo I had taken of the security manifest. It wasn't an error, it was a line item. "Sydney Staff Logistics, you saved $350. Angela stopped crying. Her face went blank, the mask slipping completely. "So what? You are staff. You've always been staff. Who do you think you are? You're the one who handles things. That's your job. That's the only reason we invite you anywhere. You're boring, Sydney. You're plain. You're useful. That's it." Savannah gasped, actually lowering her phone for a second. Even Tyler looked away. It should have hurt. It should have devastated me. But instead it felt like the final tumblers of a lock clicking into place. "Thank you," I said. Angela blinked. "What? Thank you for finally being honest. You're right, I was useful. But the thing about staff, Angela, is that staff can quit." I turned to Savannah. "Post that video, please. I want everyone to see exactly who you people are when the money stops." I walked past them. Tyler moved to block me, but I just looked at him. Really looked at him with cold, dead eyes of a bank manager foreclosing on a home. He stepped aside. As I reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. A notification from my bank app. "Transfer initiated. $15,000 to Savannah Honey Fund." I stopped. I hadn't authorized that. I opened the app. It was a recurring transfer I had set up years ago for family emergencies linked to a joint account I shared with Tyler for contingencies. He had just tried to drain it, but the transaction was grayed out. Failed, insufficient funds, I had emptied that account 3 hours ago. I laughed again, louder this time. They were still trying to loot the building while it was burning down. They weren't just cruel, they were incompetent, and that more than anything confirmed I had made the right call. I got into my car, locked the doors, and drove away. I didn't look in the rear-view mirror. I didn't need to see the explosion. I knew exactly what it looked like. I drove straight to the one place in Newport where honesty was still the primary currency, the law. Offices of Julia Sterling. It was late past 10 on a Saturday night, but Julia was the kind of attorney who billed by the quarter hour and slept in her office. She specialized in high net worth asset protection, which usually meant divorce, but tonight it meant emancipation. I had texted her from the car, code red family audit. I need a forensic accountant and a restraining order. When I walked into her conference room, Julia was already there, a pot of coffee brewing and a legal pad on the mahogany table. She didn't offer me a tissue, she didn't ask if I was okay. She pushed a file folder toward me. Authorized, she said, her voice was gravel and cigarettes. I pulled the preliminary credit reports you asked for. It's worse than you thought. I sat down, the leather chair creaking in the silence. How bad? Your mother has opened 3 credit cards in your name, Julia said, tapping the paper. Used your social security number. The balances are maxed out. 15,000 at Saks, 10,000 at a med spa. Another 8,000 on, well, it looks like Botox and fillers categorized as medical expenses. I stared at the numbers. Identity theft. My own mother had stolen my identity to pay for her face. And Tyler, I asked. Worse, Julia said. He listed you as the guarantor on his business loan, the one for the lifestyle brand that never launched. He defaulted 3 months ago. The bank is preparing to garnish your wages. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. This wasn't just about the wedding money. This was systemic predation. They hadn't just used me, they had harvested me. What do we do? I asked. Julia smiled, a shark-like expression that showed a lot of teeth. She opened her laptop. We draft formal demand letters for every penny. We reclassify the gifts as loans based on the text messages where Angela promised to pay you back when the settlement comes in a settlement. By the way, that doesn't exist. We file police reports for the identity theft. We notify the bank about the fraudulent guarantee. We burn the fields. Sydney. Do it, I said. Audit everything. Go back 5 years. Every dinner, every plane ticket, every emergency transfer. I want an itemized list of my exploitation. We worked through the night. The printer hummed, spitting out affidavit and cease and desist letters. We built a dossier thick enough to choke a horse. It was a forensic autopsy of my family's greed. By 3:00 in the morning, we were reviewing my asset list, my 401k, my investment accounts, my small portfolio of stocks. And then Julia stopped. She frowned at the screen. Sydney, what is the escape pod? It's a cottage, I said, rubbing my eyes, a tiny place in Maine. I bought it 2 years ago as a rental property. It's my retirement plan. Why? Because Julia said slowly, turning the screen toward me. According to this listing on Lux Rentals, it's currently booked for the next 6 months. I leaned forward. There it was. My cottage, the coastal retreat, listed for $5,000 a week. I didn't list it. I said I took it off the market for renovations. Well, someone listed it, Julia said, and look at the host profile. I looked. Host Angela and Tyler Properties. My breath caught. They hadn't just stolen my credit, they had stolen my house. Click the contract, I whispered. Julia clicked. A PDF opened. A long-term commercial lease agreement with a property management company guaranteeing the property for the entire summer season. The projected revenue was $60,000. And at the bottom of the page, in a shaky pixelated scroll, was my signature. It wasn't my handwriting. It was a digital copy cut and pasted from a birthday card I had sent Angela 3 years ago. They forged it, I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow. They forged my signature to lease my house to strangers to pay for. What, the wedding debt? Likely, Julia said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, or just to pocket the cash. Sydney, this isn't civil anymore. This is criminal fraud, wire fraud, forgery, grand larceny. She looked at me, her eyes hard. This is prison time. I stared at the screen. My mother, my brother in prison, the old Sydney, the infrastructure Sydney would have panicked. She would have tried to fix it. She would have paid off the management company, cancelled the lease and covered the loss just to keep them out of jail. She would have absorbed the blow because that's what support beams do. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had thrown her into Newport Harbour along with my laminate badge. Print it, I said. Julia raised an eyebrow. Are you Sure, once we file this, print it, I repeated, add it to the pile and draft a subpoena. I want them here tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. You want to depose them? No, I said, standing up and walking to the window looking out at the city lights. I want to settle. I want to look them in the eye and give them a choice. Total surrender or total annihilation. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, my family walked into Julia's office. They looked like the survivors of a shipwreck, but without the dignity. Angela was wearing sunglasses indoors, her face puffy. Tyler was in a hoodie looking sullen. Savannah wasn't there apparently. She was too traumatized to attend. My father, Richard, shuffled in last, looking at the floor. They sat on one side of the mahogany conference table. I sat on the other, flanked by Julia and a stack of files 3 in high. This is harassment. Angela started, her voice thin and ready. Dragging us here after what you did last night. We should be suing you for emotional distress. You could try, Julia said, not looking up from her notes. But it's hard to sue from a jail cell. Angela froze. What are you talking about? I didn't speak. I just slid the first document across the table. The credit card statements, the Saks bill, the med spa invoice, identity theft, I said quietly. First degree using a family member's social security number without authorization. Angela stared at the paper. I was going to pay it back. It was just a bridge loan until I slid the second document, the defaulted business loan with my forged guarantee. Bank fraud, I said, providing false information to a federally insured institution. That's a federal crime, Tyler. Tyler went pale. I didn't mean to default. The market just. I slid the third document. The kill shot. The Lux Rentals contract for the escape pod. And this, I said, my voice dropping an octave, is grand larceny and forgery. Renting out property you don't own. Faking a signature on a commercial lease. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and Richard's heavy breathing. Angela looked at the signature, the pixelated cut and pastied forgery. She looked at me, and for the first time in my life I saw genuine terror in her eyes. Not anger, not manipulation, fear. She realized the game was over. The slot machine wasn't just broken, it was reporting her to the Gaming Commission. Sydney, she whispered, please, we're your family. No, I said, you're a syndicate. Criminal enterprise operating under the guise of a family. We'll go to jail, Tyler choked out. Mom, she's 54, I corrected, she'll do fine in minimum security. Angela let out a sob, a raw, ugly sound. She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled back. Don't touch me, what do you want? Richard spoke for the first time. His voice was cracked and dry. We have nothing. The wedding cost everything, we have nothing left. I know, I said, that's why we're doing a structured settlement. Julia handed them the final document. It was a confession of judgment. Here are the terms, I said, reciting the list I had memorized in the dark hours of the morning. 1. You will sign a full admission of guilt for all 3 frauds. We will hold it in escrow. If you ever contact me again, if you ever ask for a dime, if you ever speak my name in public, we file it with the district attorney. They nodded. Mute 2. You will liquidate assets to repay the $115,000 you stole over the last 6 years. Dad's boat, Mom's jewelry, the timeshare, sell it all. Angela gasped. Not the boat. Your father loves that boat. He should have loved his daughter more, I said. 3, I continued. You will sign a permanent non-disclosure agreement. You will never mention me on social media. You will never tag me. As far as the internet is concerned, I do not exist to you. And 4, I said, leaning forward. You will cancel the lease on my house immediately and refund every deposit you took. If I find one stranger in my cottage, the deal is off. We can't, Tyler whispered. We already spent the deposits on the catering. Then find the money, I said. Get a job, sell your car, donate plasma, I don't care. You have 24 hours. I stood up. Sign it. They signed, hands shaking, tears falling. They signed away their pride, their assets, and their claim on me. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. When they were done, Angela looked up. Her eyes were red, her face streaked with mascara. I wanted you to be part of the success. I wanted us to look good. You looked great, I said, right up until the check bounced. I turned to Julia. Are we done? We're done, Julia said, closing the file. I walked out of the conference room. I didn't say goodbye. You don't say goodbye to a tumor you've just excised. You just check the margins and move on. I walked out of Julia's building and into the bright, sharp sunlight of a Newport morning. The air smelled of salt and freedom. For the first time in 29 years, I didn't have a to-do list. Didn't have a crisis to manage. I didn't have a family to subsidize. I walked down to the harbor, past the yacht club where the wedding reception had imploded just 12 hours ago. The tent was gone. The chairs were stacked. It was just an empty patch of grass. Now I went to a small coffee stand on the pier. Large black coffee, please. That'll be $4, the barista said. I tapped my card. It beeped. Approved. It was a small thing. A $4 coffee, but it was paid for with money that was entirely mine. Money that wasn't earmarked for a bail bond or a Botox injection, money that belonged to me. I took the cup and walked to the end of the pier, leaning against the railing and looking out at the Atlantic. The water was choppy, blue, grey and restless. I thought about justice. People often confuse it with revenge. Revenge is emotional, it's about inflicting pain because you are in pain. Revenge is slashing tires or screaming insults, but this, what I had done, wasn't revenge. I hadn't destroyed them. I had simply stopped propping them up. I had removed the artificial support beams and let gravity do its job. That isn't cruelty, it's physics, it's a market correction, it's balancing the books. I took a sip of the coffee, it was hot and bitter and perfect. My phone buzzed in my pocket, I pulled it out. A notification from the group chat, Family Unity. Angela added you to the group. Angela, Sydney, please, we signed the papers, just come home, we can fix this. I looked at the message. The final desperate attempt to infrastructure back into place, to make the floorboards stop creaking. I didn't reply, I didn't block them, I did something more permanent. I tapped leave group, then I tapped delete conversation. The chat vanished. No archive, no backup, just empty white space. I put the phone away and turned my face to the sun. I wasn't a daughter anymore, I wasn't a sister, I wasn't staff, I was Sydney. And for the first time in my life I was solvent. Have you ever been the infrastructure of your family? Drop a yes in the comments if you enjoyed the story, hit like and subscribe for more story, share this story. You are not alone. God bless you. Thanks for watching.